Hello, I'm Joshua Smith, and welcome to another exciting episode of Captain Cinema's Entertainment Explosion, where today we're having another special guest, author Rektok Ross. She's going to be talking about her latest novel, Summer Rental. Hope you enjoy it. Well, hello. How are you, Miss Lonnie Cotter?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I can't complain, and if I did, who would really care, honestly? Uh, we are here to talk about a very special book that you wrote that came out over the summer, and I have a visual aid,
Oh,
Summer
I love
Rent.
that. Oh,
Um, Summer Rental came out this summer. I have to say, I loved it. I absolutely did. The fact that, and this is one of the questions, so I'll just lead right into it.
sure.
So, critics call this book Mean Girls Meets Scream. Now, do you agree with that assessment and why?
I do agree with that assessment. So it's so funny. I'm glad you have a copy of the book because I usually have one somewhere in my office and I forgot to bring one, but I do have this. I have
Yes.
Space, which I feel like is very similar,
Appropriate.
very on brand. So I absolutely do agree with um the reviews saying that it is very much like Mean Girls Meet Scream. It's kind of what like myself and the marketing team came up with also when we were thinking about how we were going to go out with this book. So I I obviously love writing, but I also love all things about publishing. I'm like very strategic whenever I release a book. And so I spent a lot of time thinking like, what's an easy way to get the message of what this book is about across very fast and very quickly. A lot of time in marketing, you got to get people's attention right away. And so as we were going through, like, we always do movies. I feel like movies are really easy comps for people, even though it's a book. Everyone kind of gets when you put two movies together, or like maybe a movie in a really well known book or a TV show. People seem to really get that and it clicks really fast. And it's funny because originally, uh, always thought Mean Girls, like, always thought the Mean Girls was the dead on comp for this cast of characters. It's a group for people who are listening. It's a group of who haven't read the book. It's a group of like frenemies. So girls that all hang out together, like the mean girl clique that are friends, but not really. Just like a lot of women have probably experienced in their lifetime. And they go on
Sadly.
this sadly, and that's a lot of the book too, a lot of the message I wanted to get out there. But a group of like very popular, very beautiful, very that kind of mean girl clique that you see in the movie Mean Girls that goes on a vacation and one of their friends goes missing. A hurricane rolls down and then the bodies start dropping. So there
Yes.
also is very much a comedic aspect to it as well. I would say it's like a slasher, but almost like a horror comedy slasher, very similar to Scream, actually. Very similar to Scream, how Scream has a lot of satire. But also, I was thinking of Cabin in the Woods is the other one that I would say has a lot of similar like comedic elements. And so we thought of like, okay, Mean Girls, it's kind of funny. It's these like bitchy mean girls to each other. And then what's the horror movie? Because it definitely has like those slasher, comedic slasher aspects. And originally, and I don't know, Josh, if you picked up on this, but there are actually a lot of callbacks to another 90s horror slasher called I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's
Okay.
also written by the great Kevin Williamson. That's the
Yes.
screenwriter who wrote Scream as well. And he wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer right around the same. They both came out kind of around the same time. And there's a lot of like, there's a lot of reminiscence of the yellow raincoat and the fisherman story, the urban legend, all of that. It's kind of a beachside, seaside community. So all that is very much I Know What You Did Last Summer. But when we were coming up with like what's the pitch, what's the hook to get people to easily recognize this, Scream had just had its resurgence.
Yes.
And we had, the Scream 5 and now Scream 6. And so to make this really contemporary for people to like all generations, not just like the 90s and the 80s, but like the younger people, Scream felt like a better fit. It was still very much on brand, but it felt like everyone's going to know what Scream is because of that, Scream surgeons versus I Know You Did Last Summer. There was a TV show, which was great,
Yes. Yes,
which
it
was
was.
great actually, woefully underappreciated in my opinion. And I think they are doing a movie remake, but it just didn't have the same brand recognition, I think, as Scream has. And
Yeah.
so that was the genesis of it. And I have been so happy that readers have taken that and have run with it. And because it would stink if I put out like, oh, it's Mean Girls Meet Scream, and people were like, it's nothing like Mean Girls and it's nothing like Scream. But it seems like people have really kind of like embraced that. And I've gotten that feedback a lot. People are like, this is exactly like Mean Girls versus Scream, which has been really cool to see.
I will say it's always great when people fall in love with the Scream franchise because people, okay, this is very morbid, but people love a killer with a funny sense of humor, which is why people love Ghostface and Freddy because they talk to you like Jason and Michael. No funny bone in their body.
Not funny.
Not
No, I
funny.
agree. I'm like obsessed with slashers, which anyone who reads Summer Rental will pick that up probably right away because there's so many callbacks and references and Easter eggs. But I agree. I mean, I do still love Halloween and Michael Myers, and I do Friday the 13th not as much, but I do really love. I am definitely Halloween girl, but I really like the tongue in cheek comedic slashers as well. I find those. I like the wit about them, so I find those super enjoyable. I totally agree.
One of my favorite that kind of echoes both I Know What You Did and Scream is a little movie called Urban Legend, which is one of my favorites.
Urban Legend.
Me too. I would honestly put Scream, Urban Legend, then I Know What You Did. That would be my order. I would put those in
Yeah,
because
it just had its 25th, I think 25th year anniversary. I saw on Twitter. I followed the screenwriter of Urban Legend. That's very cool. I love Urban Legend. That was a great one too.
and I'm not going to lie, the backseat scene and the performance of oh, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's the voice of Chucky at the gas station with the stutter.
Yeah.
That scene puts me on edge. I know what's coming, but it still puts me on edge every single time. It's crazy.
Great. It's great. And I love how it plays on tropes of like that the gas station attendant is like the crazy killer, but really it's person in the car. No, it's a great movie. I love Urban Legend.
Well, it's funny that you echoed this already, but I'll still ask the question. You can just touch on it lightly. What was how did you come up with a concept for Summer Rental? Like what was we know the inspiration a little bit, but what in your own words, like how did you come up with that concept?
Yeah, so for me, Summer Rental was kind of two ideas merging together. The first is I love slashers. I love 90s horror, and I really wanted to do like a 90s slasher murder mystery kind of a I really wanted to do a genre book like that. I actually have a podcast called Just for Thrills where we talk about like bringing horror to the people. So I love to introduce people that think like they don't like horror or they don't like thrillers, and I like to introduce them to the genre and let them see that actually they do love it. There might be like a certain type they don't like maybe they don't like gore or whatever, but people that just say, oh, I don't watch horror, I don't like horror, I don't read it, I think they just haven't been exposed to like the right horror trope or the right horror story that resonates with them. So I knew I wanted to like do my own version of a slasher that I think a lot of people will resonate with, whether or not they think that they like horror or a slasher. I wanted to write something that was very commercial and very palatable to people. And so that's been great because I feel like I have reached a lot of people that normally wouldn't read horror and have really enjoyed Summer Rental. So I knew I wanted to do like that was the one piece, like the A piece. I knew I really wanted to do like a slasher murder mystery that people would enjoy outside of like typical horror lovers. And then the second aspect was I had an experience growing up where, and I feel like all women have had this, which is very sad. And we already talked about that like very briefly, but I had experience with like toxic female friendship and like friends, like really good friends kind of turning their back on me and ostracizing me, which I think is obviously bullying is horrible in any way, shape, or form. But I feel like we do talk a lot about bullying and its impact. And I feel like there's like this, I don't know what the right, like, it's almost like taboo to talk about friends turning on each other. There's like this whole aspect of they know you the best, so it hurts the most when they no longer want to be your friend, or like you've told them intimate things about you and now they're like telling other people. There's like this whole trust thing. And then there's also, I think, an aspect of embarrassment. Like no one wants to admit that they don't have any friends, or like that the people that were their friends no longer like them and hate them. That's like very embarrassing, especially when you're young and, middle school or high school, and you're just learning who you are, and your sense of self is very fragile, and you really depend on your friendship group and your peers, and then those people that you really counted on decide for whatever reason they now hate you, and like they're gonna not hang out with you and they're gonna be mean to you. And so that was like very formative experience that happened to me and really was pretty traumatic. And I've really changed a lot of things to this day in the way that I interact with friends and other women. I mean, I'm like good. Like I have lots of good female friends and stuff. It's not like I'm completely like tarnished, but I am careful whenever I enter into a new relationship. I'm very careful, and I didn't used to be like that. I was much more open and much more innocent, I think. And then I saw that happen again. I'm a stepmom now, and I have 3 kids, 2 stepdaughters, and I saw the almost exact same thing happen to them, one in high school and one in college, and it was awful watching them go through it. And it kind of brought all of this back, and it really made me think, like, why do we not? I mean, Mean Girls did do it, sort of. Mean Girls did it more of like, it was more like a bullying other people, not as much in the friend group. And I thought, like, why don't we talk about this more? Why isn't this more of an open conversation about not just like the popular girls being mean to like the unpopular girls, but like how about just every friend group is sometimes mean to each other,
Yeah.
and the impact of that. And so I knew, I was like, I want to write about this. I want people to talk about this. And the other thing to me that was really important was when I watched my stepdaughters go through this, I knew the girls that were being nasty to them and whatever. And they weren't nasty girls. Like they'd been in my house. Like they were really nice, like sweet, smart, well-rounded girls that for whatever reason just decided they didn't want to be their friends anymore. And they kind of tortured them with that decision. And I thought, like, if they actually could see the impact of what they were doing, if they were actually in my house and could see how upset my daughters were and how they were crying and they weren't eating and like they wanted to leave school and move, like if they could actually see that, I don't think those girls would have done that. I think it's like there's a distance there where you can be really mean and you don't see the impact. And I think people actually reading this book and seeing like this is the impact. And this is obviously the fun thing about horror is you take it to the next level. Like here the impact is someone now is like killing all of you guys one by one because you're a bunch of jerks. But I think if people could actually see how harmful it is, I think maybe not everyone has to be friends, but like there's a kinder way to do it. You don't have to be best friends with everyone, but if you decide that friendship's not working, you could still be nice. And there's like a kindness, a way that you can treat people, not like this nasty bullying, torturing thing that girls do to each other. And so I knew I wanted to tell that story. And like for me, it was very cathartic to write this book because I feel like I got all of that, all of the frustration I think that I still have as when I was a teenager. And then the frustration I had as, a mom watching this happen to the girls. And at that time, I couldn't do anything other than comfort them. I couldn't like talk to these girls about what they were doing. I feel like this was my way of like talking to those girls as well. And hopefully talking to other girls that either the ones that are like being mean or the ones that are receiving the meanness and kind of trying to figure both out. Like you don't have to be that way to the girls that are being nasty. And then for the girls that are, being bullied, it's okay. Like this is totally normal. There's nothing wrong with you. Like this is just what girls do, unfortunately.
Yeah, not many people who have friends, the friends themselves never realize that sometimes they are considered family. So when that friendship ends, it's like losing
Yes.
a family member, and that's the real horror. So
Is I 100%. It's very traumatic.
it
It's very
is.
traumatic, like, but it's like one thing I feel like it's very bizarre. We don't really talk about it that much. It's not
Not
really addressed. And kids, when it happens to, young kids and stuff, I didn't tell my parents, like, no one wants to talk about it. It's
yeah.
like, so I think just really being able to reestablish what I wanted to do in summer rentals, reestablish for the people that are going through it and don't want to talk to someone. I wanted to assure them that like this is normal and you'll get through it and you'll find other friends and other things will happen in your life. And this is not the only thing. And you just have to make it past that. And I even have a little note that I was encouraged by my daughters and also my husband to put in there that's like what to do if you're the victim of bullying. And kind of both from like just an emotional respect, steps to take, but also I was a lawyer for a long time. So as a trial attorney, I also put in a couple little things like legally what you might want to do, if it gets very severe, not like if it's tolerable, whatever, if it gets to the next level, like saving screenshots, going off of social media, talking to, a trusted authority, all of that, which I think is very important. And I just want to have like a little bit of, which is not typical in fiction, but for me, this was such a personal thing. I want to have a little bit of a resource in there as well for anyone reading it and going through it.
It definitely brings backstabbing to a new light. Sorry.
Yeah. No, this book definitely does.
Yes. It's so funny that
Love that backstabbing. That's a great fun. I got to use that.
Thank you. Keep it
down.
Yes, please. I will say that you kind of answered my next question, which was, that horror is a huge part of our pop culture and what inspired you to write it. You answered that question, so I'm just going to go to my next one after that.
We could also talk about, I think, like, yes, I wanted to bring horror to light and all of that. That definitely is what inspired me to write Summer Rental. And I wanted to reach people that maybe don't think they like horror and slasher. So I think we answered that part. But the other thing that is fun to talk about is just horror in general and why it's such a fun medium for an artist to play in. And I think you are seeing a resurgence right now because I think a lot of people are discovering this aspect of it, which I've always known and loved, is that horror is a way to play on or talk about things that are very serious in our society, issues that we have, wrongs that we want righted, things that we see that we don't think are correct in the world. But horror is a really safe way to explore it, where I think you're not as in people's faces with it. You can do it. It's much more tongue-in-cheek. It's much more fun. There's much more flexibility in the way you play with it, like as opposed to doing a very serious drama or even like a very serious documentary about something. That's a little bit harder. And sometimes people don't want to be preached at, or maybe they don't want to think about or address the issue. But when you take something really serious, like how Get Out addressed, racism and white privilege and everything, but it did it in a very fun tongue-in-cheek way that everyone could really, people that maybe didn't want to talk about that conversation or weren't engaging in Black Lives Matter or didn't want to talk about, white privilege or whatever, they were just immediately turned off by the conversation. I think they went to that movie and they didn't see it as like, this is important, you need to listen. They went to be entertained, but that message was clearly there. And they were thinking about something in a different way that, like, if you would try to sit down and make them read White Fragility or something, like, they would never do that. No. So I think it allows us to talk about these issues that need to be talked about, but like in a fun, palatable way, like almost like you're disguising the pill or something. And I think for me, that's what I love about horror. Like, I get to talk about, why you shouldn't bully people and why you shouldn't be a jerk, but I don't do it. It's not like in a preachy way. It's like you watch this and you see how these girls are and you see them get killed one by one and your brain kind of automatically clicks like, oh, well, maybe like being a bad person is not like a great way to live your life without someone having to lecture it. And so I think that's what's so fun about horror. And that's what has always like drawn me to the genre. And I think that's why you're seeing so much of it right now, because like, not to get whatever, but like it is a broken world. Like there's a lot of things that happen that are not great that need to be addressed and people need to talk about. But our defenses, our mechanisms are all up and we don't want to have those conversations. We're sick of those conversations. But you can have them in horror. And
that's true.
Feel like you're having them as much.
I will say that the reason why horror is probably my favorite genre is because you can feel all the a good horror film will allow you to have all the emotions. You could be laughing in 1 minute, scared in the next, crying. You can be terrified about it. That horror is just it allows you to expand your way of looking at what filmmaking and cinema is, in my opinion. Like a good scary movie can make you feel everything.
I agree 100%. And I love like not a crappy one, obviously, but one that does it right. And I love the ones that, I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peele. If he's able to do that so well, and that's what I try to do in my writing as well. My storytelling is like, make it entertaining and commercial, but also like social commentary is a huge part of what I like to write about as well. And like, we talked about Get Out, but also, if you look at a movie like A24, everyone loves them. I think they're amazing too. A movie like Hereditary, that
Oh,
you
yeah.
watch it and you're like, oh, I mean, it's really dark, and it definitely is like very existential and not like a feel good movie, but it talks about, mental illness and generational mental illness being passed down from, parent to child in just like a really interesting way without, again, being in your face. It's like, this is a demon that's jumping from, family to family, or, mother to daughter, and then I guess to son after the daughter, I think, doesn't work out so well. But it's like it's looking at generational mental illness, but in a very different, like, interesting way. And I love that's like my sweet spot. That's what I love to do, and that's what I love to watch are these movies and TV shows too that are you know, doing these really fun commercial projects, but are talking about these really important, really interesting social issues.
Shout out to Jamie Lee Curtis, who gave a shout out during her Oscar speech to the horror community. This is why.
Oh,
This is
she's
why.
amazing. They're doing it. I mean, it's incredible. I don't think horror gets credit. And like horror's doing the work. I mean,
Yeah.
they're really, I mean, the stuff that's coming out. I mean, Megan is another one that I thought was so brilliant about the dangers of AI and just a discussion of how AI, in the future, what it's going to look like. And there's some good about it and there's some bad. Anyway, I mean, there's like, obviously, I'm a huge horror fan, and I think,
Oh, yeah. Well, I love how you brought up Megan, because this literally just walks right through the door in the next question. This is brilliant. I love this. It's long, so I'm going to have to look at my notes now.
okay, go for it.
So, Blumhouse Productions is a massive studio putting out new content for viewers every month, it seems like. Would you like to see Jason Blum adapt Summer Rental into either the big or small screen, like an adaptation? I can
So,
answer that one personally.
I mean, if Jason Blum ever hears this, I am like the biggest Jason Blum fan ever. I've been following him for years and years and years. I hope I meet him one day because I will be a huge fangirl. I've listened to like every podcast I think that he's been on and been interviewed. I just think he's so cool and so interesting. And I love how he's built up this business model with very low budget, 5 million and under, and finds these amazing projects. And it's really cool because his parents were like artists. And so he has this whole background of art. And so it's interesting that he went into horror. And now you can see it coming out. Like a lot of the projects he does, they're really incredible because they're blending in like the artistry of the storytelling, and they're very artsy and have all these like hidden meanings and stuff, but they're in horror and they're low budget. So I just think what he's been able to do is amazing. I would love to work with him. I do, however, have two wonderful producer partners already that are attached to Ski Weekend and see how they feel about Summer Rental. But Oren and Miles Cools, and Oren has been in the horror and also just industry forever. He did all the Saw movies, which I don't know if you've seen Saw. So I actually just was blessed to see Saw 10 with them. So I have to tell you, this is so interesting. So I loved the first Saw. So the first Saw to me is I think the franchise eventually got like much more gory. I haven't seen all of them. I saw the first one, and the first one was not at all. It was very much a psychological thriller, really similar to like a movie Seven, which is another movie I absolutely love, or like Silence of the Lambs, something with like kind of a sadistic serial killer, but an interesting serial killer, an interesting.
Yes, exactly.
And the ending of the first Saw, I mean, my jaw was like on the floor. I know why that movie just did so amazingly well. But even working with Oren and Miles on Ski Weekend, I even told them like joking about when they told me like, let's go see Saw 10. I was scared to see it because the first Saw, like I loved, they know that, but they know like some of them, I'm not like a big gore person or like a torture porn. Like it's fine, but it's not really what I like to watch personally. So I told them like, how gory is this? How whatever. And they said, no, you're going to be totally fine. It's actually, they went back to basics for it. And it's very much a story of Jigsaw. It's like the first half is like all about Jigsaw. and like his life, his motivations, whatever. And then it's kind of like a revenge thriller, which Summer Rental, that's like I love revenge thrillers. Like that's my thing. So I was like, okay, whatever. Like they were in town. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go because I wanted to see them, and I'm like, I'm gonna go see it. And I have to tell you, it was actually so good. Like I told them, and it's funny because the reviews have been amazing too. It's great. Like even if there's a couple gory scenes for sure where I was like, but it wasn't that bad, and it was in furtherance of the story. It wasn't like gory to be gory. It was gory because it was necessary for the story they were telling. So I'm a huge fan. I thought Saw 10 was so freaking good. Like everyone should go see it.
I heard that.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, they are doing Ski Weekend, which is my debut thriller, my baby. And it's for people who haven't read it, like that one we pitched as The Breakfast Club meets Alive. So you see, I like to do the two things together. And we'll see. I mean, I think hopefully Summer Rental too. We'll see. But either way, Jason Blum, I would love to work with you in some capacity at some point or just meet you. So I'm a huge Blumhouse fan. I would love to work with him or his team or meet with them, like 100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I feel like after reading this and just hearing you talk about how much you love writing this story, I feel like Blumhouse would. It sounds like to me it's a mixture of three things actually.
Okay.
So you have the Mean Girls in the Scream aspect, but what if you had the tone of Megan?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, even though Megan is about AI, the tone and the way that film was shot, the glossy look.
That's what I like. I like the glossy look.
Yep. So I was that's where my film mind was going.
No, 100%. Like it's funny because I think of all this. Like I love A24. Don't get me wrong. Like I love them and I'd be thrilled to work with them. But some of the projects they've done, like Hereditary or Midsommar, is too dark for my brand. My brand is much more like what I read is much more commercial. It's much more fun. It's commercial. It's got like, the soundtrack that you're going to listen to afterwards and like the very charismatic cast. So it's very much like a Blumhouse or a Scream or something like that. You 100% are correct. I still A24. I still would work with you 100%. But I do think when I'm just thinking like cinematically in my head, the movies or the production companies I've seen that are very similar to the type of stories I think that I tell and want to tell are very much like the glossy commercial, like the thing everyone's going to see at the movie theater, not just like The Fringe.
Exactly. I agree with that completely. So, speaking of movies,
Yes.
let's say that Summer Rental got the big screen treatment, the big fancy big screen treatment.
Let's say,
rub
your mouth to the universe.
Exactly. If this so was to happen, characters like Cam and Val and Nina and Blake and of course Riley, who do you see as an upcoming established actor from film and television to play these characters? And Wally will just talk about Riley since she's the main.
I was going to talk about Blake because to me, Blake is, I don't want to give anything away, but Blake, I love Riley. I do love Riley. And Riley is very interesting as well. I haven't thought as much on who would play her. I would think someone like an Olivia Rodrigo or because I think of Riley as like the really like sweet, kind, you want to root for girl next door. That's like beautiful, but not like beautiful, but relatable, like that kind of a character. And so Olivia Rodrigo, someone like her immediately comes to mind. I also have her in mind for Ski Weekend too. So I don't know if I want to overbook Olivia, but definitely the girl next door, someone that the viewer can put their, basically kind of put themselves into the shoes of that person. So it's got to be someone really likable, very relatable, attractive, but like not in a girl next door kind of a way. So she's kind of the person that I always think of. Or like a Taylor Swift, but Taylor Swift is too old, obviously, for this. And then for me, like Blake is, I love all of the characters, but Blake for me is just like, I don't know, there's something about her. I really, really love her. And so she's always come really clear in my head as like, I would want a super badass, like blonde, very strong, very funny kind of character. And so I've thought of like Madeline Klein from The Outer Banks. I feel like she needs a big like breakout movie.
That's
She's
true.
killing it at TV, and she had, a small role in that Knives Out. But like I feel like she's primed to really break out in a big role. I think she would be fantastic. I think Renee Rapp from she actually was in Mean Girls in the play and on Broadway, and then she is in Mindy Kaling's TV show. I forgot what it's. The Sex Lives of College. I love that show. It's the Sex Lives of College Girls or something. It's a great show.
Yeah.
I think she would be amazing. And then if I was going to take a chance on someone that like I just think they embody like the spirit and the charisma of a Blake, but are not necessarily an actor, I think of Livy Dunn, because she's kind of like just like her personality, her presence and everything. I feel like she has like that it factor that I think Blake has, but like there's something there where you're like, is she 100%? Like, is there something going on? Or like an Alex Earl. Like if I were gonna do like, I mean, they'd have to act. Like this is gonna be good. Like there has to be really good acting, and especially like the very nuanced and complicated character. But if I just think of like the persona or like their personality and what they exude, someone like an Alex Earl or whatever, or I mean Blake Lively's too old, but someone like a Blake Lively would be exactly who I would think of is Blake Sampson.
I love all those. I do. I was thinking for Riley when you said like I was thinking maybe someone like Cheyenne Woodley, but she might be too old at this point.
She's great. No, she would be great. She's a little too old, I think.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
make her look younger.
We need to find someone who embodies Cheyenne Woodley, but has the appropriate age.
Or like I always think of Jennifer. Like to me, Jennifer Love Hewitt was like that, like the epitome of, and that's why she was in so many. And Nev Campbell. That's why they were in so many of those '90s movies. Is like the girl next door, the relatable. That's kind of what you want for the main character in a slasher. So,
that's true. You want someone to root
down. Give them a pill and make them be like 19 or 20. That would be perfect.
I'm sure there's some out there. I guarantee it.
Olivia, I'd love to work with her. I just think she's incredible.
So, final question, and this is probably the most important.
Hey, one more thing. Yes, one more thing. You didn't ask about directors, so because but I do love the idea of Taylor Swift because she wants to get into directing, and I actually have I have a proof copy. I have a novella that I wrote for Halloween called "The Pop Star and the Devil." It's a very small short story. I wanted to write something fun for Halloween for my readers, and it's like loosely inspired by Taylor Swift, a pop star making a deal with the devil and kind of what happens from that. And so she's on behind a lot, and I know she wants to get into directing. So Taylor, also, if you want to direct Summer Rental, I think that would be a great project for you because I know that she is very much into.
She does have a movie coming out. Technically, she has a movie coming out.
She does. Okay, sorry, you had one more question.
Yes, and this might be the most important, so I'm pretty sure I know your answer. What's your favorite scary movie?
I mean, holding up the Space Nest. I mean, it's definitely Scream. There's so many that I love. I mean, there's so many, but I would definitely say that's probably my number one.
Yeah, Scream and Halloween. Yes, 100%.
I love Halloween. I actually love H2O because that one came out in the 90s, and that has like Josh.
No one talks about that movie.
That's my favorite. I mean, I do like number one. It would be 1 and H2O are probably my two favorites. I love them. But no, there's so many. The Descent, Aliens. I could talk forever about this, but Scream would be the number one.
Well, I will say that I agree with that list, and it was a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Let me stress that, an absolute pleasure, Miss Ross. Don't you just love that, Miss Ross? It's almost like Diana Ross.
Diana Ross.
Yeah, but it was a true pleasure having this interview and getting to talk and getting your feedback on your amazing. Let me do it again. Plug Summer Rental in stores.
Go out and get it. Go out and get it. And
go out and get it.
Anyone wants to connect with me, I love hearing from readers and other writers and artists. I'm on social media everywhere at Rektok Ross. That's my pen name. So REKTOK ROSS. as Josh knows, I do respond to people because
Yeah.
we connected through Twitter. So feel free to hit me up if I can ever help you out. And I would love any support. So if you like to read thrillers or scary stuff, or even a little fairy tale inspired by Taylor Swift, come find my books.
You have a lovely day.
Thank you.